it's me, Kyle A. Lohmeier of the Wurst again with another Wurst commentary. Last time I was griping about Ohio's ballot issue 3, the marijuana monopoly proposal, which was soundly defeated a couple hours after I posted that video. By then only about 2 people had seen it, so I'm not trying to take credit here, I'm just saying. But during that video I mentioned that all drugs should be legalized without exception for a variety of reasons, and one of those reasons is the most important reason of all. I touched upon the other practical reasons, the fact that it costs a lot of money to put people in prison who haven't hurt anybody. But beyond that, there is one reason to legalize drugs that trumps all the rest, and that's very simply philosophy. Someone much smarter than me once said something to the effect of that it is not a question of whether man needs philosophy, it's whether they can live without it or not. And back in the early 2000s, when I was with the newspaper and was allowed to write opinion columns every so many weeks, it occurred to me that I really ought to figure out what guides my opinions on individual issues. See, my entire adult life, I've never identified with either the Republican or Democrat parties, and my columns tended to reflect this. Some of my readers doubtlessly thought I was adopting contradictory positions. I mean, in one column, I'd be advocating for the legalization of all drugs. In another, I'd be pointing out the absurdity of gun control laws. In 2004, when Michigan voted to outlaw same-sex marriage via constitutional amendment, I wrote a column excoriating my fellow Michiganders for oppressing homosexuals. At first glance, it would seem my positions, some of them would be echoed by Democrats, others by Republicans, and again, this would seem contradictory. But the thing of it is all my opinions on individual matters can be traced back to one core belief that has for decades now been the guiding fact of my entire personal philosophy, and that is very simply that every human being owns their own body outright. I believe this fact is the basis of human philosophy and ought to be the basis of all laws governing humankind, not because I can furnish some sort of concrete physical evidence that proves all humans own their own bodies. I can't. Nobody can. But every other possible alternative philosophy to the idea of individual self-ownership is a little bit frightening, I think. I mean, if we as individuals don't own our own bodies, who does? The state? God? No. Of course, accepting that all humans own their own bodies carries a host of logical implications with it. One fairly obvious one leads us right back to what we were talking about earlier, which is legalizing drugs. If all humans own their own bodies, then of course all humans have the right to put whatever substances into their bodies they want. Society and medical experts and others might point out that there are a whole bunch of substances like heroin and methamphetamine that nobody should ever do ever. And they're not wrong on facts, it's just that the state doesn't have the right to use force to prevent people from harming themselves. They just don't. Not if we accept the fact that all humans own their own bodies. And there are other implications that arise from this philosophy as well. It would naturally follow that if I own my own body, and I must therefore own all the labor my body performs, and am therefore solely entitled to all the fruits of that labor. Philosophically, I'm right. Practically, that doesn't matter because the government still steals 1/3 of the compensation I get for the labor my body performs. And I use the word steal because that money is absolutely my property, and it is absolutely being taken against my will, and that is the standard definition of theft. The problem with the two major political parties is that both of them have party platforms that are philosophically inconsistent. The Democrats, for example, support same-sex marriage and tend to be softer on drug laws than Republicans. And these ideas seem to support the notion of individual self-ownership, but that same party also believes it has the right to steal and redistribute people's property as they see fit, and then dictate to us what limited sorts of firearms we can own. And these obviously fly in the face of individual self-ownership. And the Republicans are no better. They pay lip service to the Second Amendment, and they promise to steal a little less of your money than the Democrats will. But then they want to dictate to us, whom we can marry, when women lose rights over their own bodies, and what substances we can or cannot use. As such, both parties stand on a platform that says the state has more rights than the individual. Given this fact, the differences between the two parties seem rather small from a philosophical standpoint. Neither party embraces the concept of individual self-ownership, and therefore neither can be considered to have our best interests in mind, despite all their grandiose promises to the contrary. And speaking of grandiose promises, we're already getting into the heart of the 2016 primary election season, so be ready to hear even more of these grandiose assurances. But now, hopefully, some of you will start seeing through the lies and bullshit, and maybe we can start demanding a better government for us all. And speaking of government, next time I think we'll look at what makes government unique among all other human institutions, including those evil corporations we hear so much about. Until then, I'll just be sitting here waiting for it to fade to black. There it goes.